So now we're ready to take our little website design and flip it to make it isometric. So let's take our entire design. We're going to go up and we're going to not group them. We're going to keep them ungrouped. We're going to go up and do our extrude and bevel. We're going to make it isometric right. And we are going to significantly change the extrude depth. So let's try a couple of different numbers here to get something that is not too thick. So let's try 3. And then now we're going to need to change the lighting because it's awfully dark. So let's bring some lighting toward the front so we can get some nice bright lighting. Let's kind of change our ambient light, add a little bit more. Same thing with highlight intensity. And let's click on OK. We're going to be individually editing these layers. So we're just getting started. Let's bring it in front of the iPad. And this is where we're going to start to work with depth. So let's bring in our isometric grid. We're going to start arranging these to give it kind of this layered look. We're going to just arrange the elements. So these are our 2 iPad borders. Here's what I'm going to do to make life a lot easier on me. I'm taking these 2, this is the 2 iPad layers. I'm just going to cut those. I'm going to put it on a different layer and paste in place and move that downward. I'm just doing that to lock it so I don't accidentally grab things. So now I can easily select some of these other items. And I like to use my arrow keys to kind of do very small, minute adjustments. So let's get our header in place here. So here's our header. Let's get that right back in line. Of course, you can use that isometric grid to help you out. And there's the original red border of the shape. Select all 3. Move it up and over. Let's bring in our profile pic. And we have our little icon here. Little search icon, just slowly building this out. We can always change this corner at any time on the original shape and it'll update right there. And change the sense of depth as dramatically as you want to by bringing more distance between each layer. So right now everything is kind of tight, but I'm just pulling this layer away from this one by bringing it forward to add more of a dramatic sense of depth. So play around with depth and location with a lot of these things. And you can add depth to each one of these elements. So if I want to make this top header thicker, I select this one layer, go back to my properties panel, go ahead and click on 3D extrude and bevel, and I can add more extrude depth to it to make it even more dramatic. Same thing with these items. At any time, we could select the original shapes and add more depth. So instead of 3, we're going to do 5. And just kind of changing the lighting. So I wanted to show you a little trick here. So right now everything is a solid fill. So everything is a solid fill, so you just kind of have this kind of single shade fill. So what we're going to do, instead of just having a fill, we're going to add a stroke to this, and it's going to change the color of the side. So we're going to take a darker, we're going to see if we can't find a darker red. There we go, perfect. So I have a darker kind of reddish orange here that pairs against the fill. And you can see how it changed the color of the border. Same thing with here, we can get the eyedropper tool and adapt it. And notice that added a little bit more of a 3D element to it by adding the stroke. And you can change the stroke size too. Right now it's 1. If I increase that, you can see how it affects the shape. Decrease it, it gives it a smaller little bezel. And when we go back into our 3D in our properties panel, click on preview, and let's see what kind of lighting effects it's going to have. So it's going to give us a little bit more realistic lighting on our stroke instead of it just being nothing. We didn't have a stroke there before, now we do. Now we're getting some really cool realistic lighting here. So look at that right there. So we're getting some nice kind of lighting going that direction. Let's change our ambient light so we can get some more light on the front so it doesn't look so dark and drab. But yeah, make sure you change the location to get that nice natural highlight look. So I think those buttons look a lot better. We could do the same thing with these buttons. Let's add a little bit of a stroke. Go back to our extrude and bevel. Increase our ambient light, and voila, we get a little bit more realistic shading pretty naturally. And I can just manually adjust the thickness on that as well. Let's try the same thing with our header. Here's our header. It looks like we already have a stroke on that one, but let's go to our extrude and bevel. Let's make that header even more dramatic, making that a 7 depth. And let's play around with our shading. There we go, that's got a nice look to it. And we can always change our stroke size. So there's a lot of little elements happening here, but when you put them all together, you can kind of see some of the effects that you can create. So let's do a nice thin one, just like that. And we can make that darker, lighter. It's going to change the appearance of that stroke. So let's say I want to add icons after the fact. So let's take one of these icons. Let's take the sun. I'm going to make sure I have the strokes outlined. So now it's just one solid little icon. Let's see if I can't add a cool metallic effect to this. So here it is. Extrude and bevel. It's going to save our settings. Let's make it pretty flat. Let's just do a 1 extrude. Change our shade or lighting here. Change our highlight and light if we want to. And let's get the right color here. Let's see if we can't get a really dark orange. But let's not make it a stroke. Let's just make it a fill. And reducing the ambient light kind of gives it that silver effect. So let's reduce that a little bit and click on OK. Got ourselves a cool silver icon.